sat in the lawyer's office, her hands trembling as she held the keys to a house she had never seen before. The brass keys felt cold against her palm, almost foreign, as if they belonged to someone else's life entirely. Mr. Henderson, her late husband's attorney, had just finished explaining the contents of Robert's will, and among the familiar assets was something that made no sense at all. "I'm sorry, Mrs., but I don't understand," said her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean there's another house? Robert and I lived together for 15 years. We shared everything. How could there be a house I didn't know about?" Mr. Henderson adjusted his glasses and looked down at the legal documents spread across his mahogany desk. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of his office, casting long shadows across the papers that seemed to hold secrets never knew existed. "According to these documents, your husband purchased the property at 1247 Maple Grove Lane approximately 8 years ago. The deed shows he was the sole owner, and he specifically requested that the property be kept confidential during his lifetime. The will states that you are now the rightful owner, but—" He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "But what?" asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. "There's a clause here that's quite unusual. He left specific instructions that you were not to enter the property until after his death. In fact, there are records showing he had a security system installed that would alert him if anyone attempted to enter without his permission." Felt the world spinning around her. Robert had been her everything. They had met in college, married young, and built what she thought was a life of complete honesty and trust. He was a successful architect who worked long hours, but he always came home to her. They had talked about having children, about growing old together, about their dreams for the future. Never once had he mentioned owning another house. "Did he ever say why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Did he leave any explanation for why I couldn't know about this place?" Mr. Henderson shook his head slowly. "The only thing he left was this envelope." He handed her a cream-colored envelope with her name written in Robert's familiar handwriting. "He instructed me to give this to you along with the keys." Took the envelope with shaking hands. Her name was written in the same careful script that had penned her love letters years ago, the same handwriting that had signed their anniversary cards and left sweet notes in her lunch bag. But now, that familiar writing felt like a stranger's. She carefully opened the envelope and unfolded a single sheet of paper. Robert's words stared back at her. "My dearest, if you are reading this, then I am no longer with you, and for that, I am sorrier than words can express. I know you must have 1,000 questions, and I know that what I've done may seem like the ultimate betrayal. Please know that everything I did was to protect you, to protect the life we built together. The house on Maple Grove Lane contains parts of my life that I kept separate from ours. Not because I loved you any less, but because I loved you too much to burden you with the weight of my past. Some secrets are meant to stay buried, my darling, but I can no longer make that choice for you. Inside that house, you will find answers to questions you never thought to ask. You will discover things about me that may change how you see our life together. I pray that you will understand, and I pray even more that you will forgive me. The choice is yours now. You can sell the property without ever stepping inside, or you can unlock the door and learn the truth about who I really was before I became yours. Whatever you decide, please remember that my love for you was the most real and honest thing in my life. Forever yours, Robert." Read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Her husband, the man she thought she knew better than anyone else in the world, had been living a double life. The realization hit her like a physical blow, and she had to steady herself against the lawyer's desk. "Mrs., are you all right? Can I get you some water?" Mr. Henderson asked, his voice filled with concern. Shook her head, though she felt anything but all right. "How long did you know about this house?" "Robert came to me when he first purchased the property. He set up the legal arrangements and made it very clear that this information was to remain confidential until after his death. I advised him against such secrecy, but he was adamant. He said it was for your protection." Protection from what? Wondered. What could possibly be so dangerous or so terrible that her husband felt the need to hide an entire house from her? They had been happy, hadn't they? They had shared their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. At least she thought they had. Mr. Henderson continued gently, "you should know that the property has been maintained throughout the years. There's a caretaker who has been paid from a separate account to ensure the house remains in good condition. The utilities are current, And according to my records, your husband visited the property regularly, usually on weekends when he told you he was working late at the office. Those Saturday afternoons when Robert said he had to review blueprints at work. Those Sunday mornings when he claimed he needed to meet with clients. Had never questioned him because she trusted him completely. She had often used those times to read, to tend to her garden, or to visit her sister. She had actually appreciated having some time to herself, never suspecting that her husband was living a secret life just a few miles away. The drive to Maple Grove Lane took 20 minutes from the lawyer's office, 20 minutes during which his mind raced with possibilities. Was Robert having an affair? Did he have another family? Was he involved in something illegal? The questions with each passing mile, and by the time she pulled up to the address, her hands were so sweaty she could barely grip the steering wheel. The house was smaller than their family home, but beautiful in its simplicity. It was a craftsman-style bungalow with a wraparound porch and mature oak trees that provided shade from the late afternoon sun. The yard was meticulously maintained, with flower beds that showed someone had been caring for them recently. It looked like the kind of place where a happy family might live, which only made more confused and afraid. She sat in her car for nearly an hour, staring at the front door and trying to gather the courage to use the keys in her purse. Part of her wanted to drive away and never come back, to sell the house sight unseen and pretend this moment had never happened. But a larger part of her needed to know. After 15 years of marriage, she owed it to herself to learn the truth about the man she had loved and lost. Finally, as the sun began to set, got out of her car and walked up the stone pathway to the front door. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The key fit perfectly in the lock, and with a deep breath she turned it. The door opened into a living room that took breath away. The walls were covered with photographs, but not photographs of strangers as she had feared. They were photographs of her. Pictures of from their wedding day, from vacations they had taken together, from quiet moments at home when she hadn't even realized Robert was taking pictures. There were photos of her laughing, reading, cooking, sleeping. Years and years of photographs documenting their life together. But these weren't the casual snapshots from their family albums at home. These were professional quality photographs, taken with expensive equipment and printed on high-quality paper. They were mounted and framed with care, creating a shrine-like atmosphere that was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Moved through the living room like she was in a dream. On the mantelpiece above the fireplace were more personal items. Ticket stubs from movies they had seen together, pressed flowers from bouquets he had given her, handwritten notes she had left him over the years. It was as if Robert had created a museum dedicated to their relationship, a place where he could come to remember and relive their moments together. In the corner of the room stood an easel with a half-finished painting of sitting in their garden at home. She remembered the day it was based on because she had been reading her favorite novel under the apple tree. She had no idea Robert had been watching her, studying her, capturing that moment so he could recreate it later in this secret place. The kitchen was small but well-appointed, and noticed that the refrigerator contained her favorite foods. There was the special cheese she loved from the deli downtown, the imported tea she drank every morning, even the particular brand of yogurt she preferred. It was as if Robert had been planning to bring her here someday, or as if he had been pretending she was already there. A spiral notebook lay open on the kitchen counter, and her hands shook as she picked it up. The pages contained what appeared to be a diary written in Robert's handwriting. The entries were dated, and as she flipped through them, she realized they spanned several years. March 15th laughed at my joke about the architect and the blueprint today. Her laugh is like music. I wish I could bring her here, show her how much she means to me, but she wouldn't understand. Not yet. June 3rd, I painted her hands today from memory. I've been watching the way she holds her coffee cup in the morning, the way her fingers curl around the handle. I want to capture every detail before I forget. September 22nd, she asked me why I've been working so many weekends lately. I hate lying to her, but how can I explain that I come here to be close to her in a way that I can't at home? Here, I can love her the way I want to, without reservation, without fear. His legs gave out and she sank into one of the kitchen chairs. Robert hadn't been having an affair or living a double life in the way she had imagined. Instead, he had been conducting an affair with her memory, with his idealized version of their relationship. But why? What was he afraid of at home? What reservations or fears had he been hiding from her? She continued reading the diary entries, searching for answers. The writing revealed a man who was deeply in love but also deeply troubled. He wrote about watching her sleep and memorizing the way her hair fell across the pillow. He wrote about studying her expressions when she didn't know he was looking, trying to understand her thoughts and feelings better. He wrote about loving her so much that it scared him, about wanting to be worthy of her love in return. November 8th, she told me today that she's been thinking about having children. I can see the hope in her eyes when she talks about it, but how can I bring a child into this world when I'm not even sure I deserve the love I already have? How can I be a father when I'm still trying to figure out how to be a husband? That entry was dated 3 years ago, around the time had started bringing up the subject of starting a family more seriously. She had noticed that Robert seemed reluctant to discuss it, but she had attributed his hesitation to work stress or financial concerns. She had never imagined that he was struggling with deeper questions about his own worthiness as a partner and potential parent. January 14th, I bought her favorite flowers today and brought them here instead of taking them home. I arranged them in the blue vase she admired at the antique shop last month. Sometimes I pretend she's here with me, that we're having the conversations I'm too afraid to have in real life. I practice telling her how much I love her, how grateful I am that she chose me, how terrified I am of losing her. Wiped away tears she didn't realize had been falling. Her husband had been living with fears and insecurities she had never suspected. At home, he had always seemed confident and secure in their relationship. He was the one who planned romantic surprises, who told her he loved her every day, who seemed completely comfortable with their life together. But here, in this secret house, she was discovering a vulnerable side of Robert that he had never let her see. As the evening shadows grew longer, continued exploring the house. The bedroom contained more artwork, more photographs, and more evidence of Robert's hidden emotional life. There were love letters he had written but never given her, poems about their relationship, and detailed drawings of moments they had shared together. But it was the second bedroom that truly broke's heart. It had been set up as a nursery, painted in soft yellow with gender-neutral decorations. There was a crib, a changing table, and shelves full of children's books. In the corner sat a rocking chair with a handmade quilt draped over the back. On the dresser was another journal, this one filled with Robert's thoughts about the family they might have had. He had written about the children he hoped they would raise together, about the kind of father he wanted to be, about his fears that he wasn't good enough to deserve such happiness. The entries revealed a man who was desperately in love with the idea of their future family, but paralyzed by self-doubt. Sank into the rocking chair and let herself cry for the first time since Robert's funeral. She cried for her husband, who had been carrying so much love and fear inside him. She cried for the children they had never had, for the conversations they had never shared, for the emotional intimacy that had been so close yet so far away. As night fell completely, realized she had been in the house for hours, but she wasn't ready to leave. There was still so much to discover, so many answers to find. She called her sister to let her know she wouldn't be coming home that night, making an excuse about needing to handle some legal matters. Then she settled in to continue learning about the man she thought she had known completely. In Robert's desk, she found financial records showing that he had been setting aside money for years, apparently saving for their future family. There were research files about child development, parenting books with extensive notes in the margins, and brochures for family vacation destinations. He had been planning and dreaming about their life together in ways that went far beyond anything they had discussed. The most surprising discovery came in a locked filing cabinet for which she found the key hidden in a picture frame. Inside were medical records and appointment cards for a therapist. Learned that Robert had been seeing Dr. Sarah Martinez for over 2 years, apparently trying to work through his fears and insecurities so that he could be a better husband and potential father. The therapy notes, which Robert had kept copies of, revealed the extent of his internal struggles. He had been dealing with abandonment issues stemming from his childhood, when his own father had left the family. He was terrified of not being good enough of somehow failing her the way his father had failed his mother. The therapist's notes showed that Robert had been making progress, slowly learning to trust in love and his own worthiness of that love. Spent the night reading through everything, trying to piece together the puzzle of her husband's secret emotional life. By dawn, she had a clearer picture of the man she had married, but she also had more questions the next morning, woke up on the couch in Robert's secret house, sunlight streaming through windows she had never seen before. For a moment, she forgot where she was, but then the reality of her discovery came rushing back. She had spent the night surrounded by evidence of her husband's hidden life, and she still felt like she was living in someone else's nightmare. made coffee using Robert's expensive espresso machine, nodding that he had stocked the kitchen with her favorite coffee beans. As she sat at the kitchen table with the morning light illuminating Robert's diary, she noticed an entry she had missed the night before. December 2nd, I've decided to tell about this place. Dr. Martinez thinks I'm ready, and I think she's right. I've been carrying this secret for too long, and it's creating a wall between us that she doesn't even know exists. I'm going to plan something special, bring her here for our anniversary, and explain everything. I want her to see how much I love her, but I also want her to understand why I've needed this space to process my feelings. His heart stopped. That entry was dated just 2 weeks before Robert's sudden heart attack. He had been planning to share this secret with her, to finally bridge the gap between his public and private emotional lives. But fate had intervened, leaving her to discover everything alone, without his explanation or his presence to help her understand. She continued reading, finding more recent entries that painted a picture of a man who was finally ready to open up completely to his wife. Robert had been seeing his therapist twice a week in the months before his death, working intensively on his fear of vulnerability and his perfectionist tendencies that made him afraid to show his struggles. December 10th, I bought a gift for today, something to give her when I bring her here. It's in the safe upstairs, along with some other things I want her to have. Dr. Martinez helped me write a letter explaining everything. I'm nervous, but I'm also excited. For the first time in our marriage, I feel ready to let her see all of me, not just the version of myself I think she wants to see. A safe upstairs had been so overwhelmed by the main floor discoveries that she hadn't thoroughly explored the second floor. She made her way up the narrow staircase, her heart pounding with anticipation and dread. What else had Robert hidden from her? What other secrets was she about to uncover? The upstairs consisted of a small office and a larger room that had been converted into an art studio. The office contained more financial records and correspondence with the property caretaker, but it was the art studio that took breath away. The room was filled with Robert's artwork, and every single piece was inspired by or their life together. There were paintings of her in different seasons and moods, sculptures that captured her hands and face in loving detail, and mixed media pieces that incorporated elements from their shared experiences. One wall was dedicated to a series of paintings that chronicled their relationship from their first meeting to their wedding day to quiet moments throughout their marriage. Robert had been an architect by profession, but his true passion had clearly been art, and was his muse for everything he created. In the center of the room stood a sculpture that made gasp. It was a life-sized figure of herself, carved from white marble with incredible skill and detail. She was depicted reading a book, her face peaceful and content, wearing the sundress she had worn on their honeymoon. The sculpture was so lifelike that felt like she was looking at herself from another person's perspective. At the base of the sculpture was a bronze plaque with an inscription, "My inspiration, my love, my everything. You are more beautiful than any art I could ever create, and loving you has been the greatest masterpiece of my life." Touched the smooth marble surface, marveling at the skill and devotion that had gone into creating such a piece. How many hours had Robert spent working on this? How many evenings had he told her he was working late at the office when he was actually here, pouring his love and artistic talent into capturing her essence in stone? The safe was hidden behind a large painting of sitting in their garden. When she moved the painting aside, she found a digital safe with a note taped to it. "'S birthday, written in Robert's handwriting. She entered the numbers for her birth date, and the safe opened to reveal several items that made her sink into the nearest chair. First was an engagement ring, not the simple band Robert had given her when they got engaged, but an elaborate diamond ring that must have cost more than he earned in several months. With it was a letter explaining that he had wanted to give her something more spectacular when he proposed, but he had been too insecure about his finances and too afraid she might think he was trying to buy her love. "I saved for 2 years to buy you this ring," the letter read. "But when the time came to propose, I lost my nerve. I was afraid you would think I was being flashy or trying too hard. I was afraid you might see right through me and realize I was just a man who wasn't good enough for someone as amazing as you. So I gave you the simple ring instead, and I've regretted that cowardice ever since. You deserve to be proposed to with a ring that matched how precious you are to me." The second item in the safe was a thick folder labeled "Our Future Family." Inside were house listings for larger homes with good school districts, research on the best pediatricians in the area, and detailed financial plans showing how they could afford to give children a comfortable life. There were also letters addressed to their future children, written in Robert's careful handwriting. Opened one of the letters with trembling hands. To our first child. By the time you read this, you will probably think your father was a sentimental fool, and you will probably be right. But I want you to know that you were loved and wanted long before you existed. Your mother and I dreamed about you for years before we had the courage to bring you into the world. I hope that by the time you are old enough to understand this letter, I will have learned how to be the father you deserve. I hope I will have overcome my fears about not being good enough, about not knowing how to love someone properly, about all the ways I might fail you. Your mother is the strongest, kindest, most beautiful person I have ever known. Everything good in me exists because she loves me and believes in me. I hope you inherit her capacity for love and her ability to see the best in people, even when they can't see it in themselves. I promise to spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of being your father, just as I have spent every day of my marriage trying to be worthy of being your mother's husband. With all my love and hope for the future, your father. There were 3 more letters, each addressed to a different potential future child, each filled with the same love, hope, and insecurity. Realized that Robert had been planning their family for years, thinking through every detail, preparing emotionally and financially for children they had only begun to discuss seriously. The 3rd item in the safe was a jewelry box containing a necklace had admired in a store window 2 years earlier. She had mentioned liking it once, casually, but Robert had remembered and purchased it. The accompanying note explained that he had been waiting for the right moment to give it to her, but he could never find an occasion that felt special enough. The final item was the letter Dr. Martinez had helped Robert write, the one he had planned to give when he brought her to the house. Hands shook as she unfolded the pages. My dearest, if you are reading this letter in the house on Maple Grove Lane, then I have finally found the courage to share the deepest part of myself with you. This place represents everything I have been too afraid to say, everything I have been too insecure to show you, and everything I love about our life together. I know you must be confused and probably hurt that I kept this secret from you. I know you are wondering why I felt the need to hide such a huge part of my life. The truth is, I was terrified that if you saw how intensely I love you, how much I think about you, how completely my world revolves around you, you would think I was obsessive or unhealthy or not the man you thought you married. For years, I have struggled with feeling worthy of your love. You are so smart, so kind, so capable of loving openly and without fear. I have watched you give your whole heart to our relationship while I held pieces of mine back, not because I loved you less, but because I was afraid that if I showed you everything, you might realize you could do better. This house became my sanctuary, the place where I could love you completely without fear of overwhelming you or driving you away. Here I could paint you, write about you, dream about our future without worrying that my intensity might scare you. Here I could practice being the husband I wanted to be for you. But Dr. Martinez has helped me understand that by keeping this part of myself hidden, I was actually doing us both a disservice. You married all of me, not just the parts I thought were acceptable to show. You deserve to know how deeply you are loved, how completely you have captured my heart, how much thought and care I put into every aspect of our relationship. The nursery upstairs represents my dreams for our family. I know we have only just begun to talk seriously about having children, but I have been thinking about it and preparing for it for years. I wanted to be ready financially, emotionally, and practically before I told you how much I want to be a father to your children. The art throughout this house represents my attempt to capture and preserve every beautiful moment we have shared together. I know it might seem excessive, but you have brought so much beauty into my life that I couldn't help but try to create beauty in return. I love you more than I have ever been able to tell you. I love you in ways that feel too big for words, too overwhelming for casual conversation, too intense for everyday life. But I'm tired of loving you in secret. I'm tired of hiding the depth of my feelings behind small gestures and safe conversations. I want to bring you fully into my world, to share every thought and feeling and dream I have about us. I want you to see yourself the way I see you, as the most incredible person I have ever known, as the center of my universe, as the woman who has made my life worth living. I hope you can forgive me for waiting so long to share this with you. I hope you can understand why I needed time to work through my fears before I could open this door. And most of all, I hope you can see that everything I did because I love you too much to risk losing you. Welcome to the part of my heart I thought I had to keep hidden. Welcome to the place where I love you without limits or fears or reservations. Forever and completely yours. Robert read the letter 3 times before setting it down with shaking hands. She felt like she was meeting her husband for the first time, seeing him as a complete person instead of the carefully edited version he had presented to her during their marriage. The man who had written this letter was deeper, more complex, more vulnerable than the Robert she thought she knew. She spent the rest of the morning exploring every corner of the house, finding new evidence of Robert's hidden life with each room she entered. In the basement, she discovered a workshop where he had been building furniture for their future family's home. There were cradles, toy chests, and bookcases in various stages of completion, all crafted with loving attention to detail. In the attic, she found boxes of letters he had written but never sent, expressing his feelings about everything from their anniversary dinners to quiet Sunday mornings to his fears about not being good enough for her. There were also detailed plans for surprise trips he had wanted to take her on, complete with researched hotels and activities tailored to her interests. By afternoon, felt emotionally drained but also strangely grateful. Yes, Robert had kept enormous secrets from her, but those secrets revealed the depth of his love rather than any betrayal. He hadn't been hiding an affair or a double life. He had been hiding his own vulnerability and the overwhelming intensity of his feelings for her. Called Dr. Martinez's office and was able to schedule an appointment for later that week. She needed professional help processing what she had discovered, and she thought Robert's therapist might be able to provide insights into his motivations and mental state. She also called her sister Emma, asking if they could meet for dinner. Needed to talk to someone about what she had found, but she wasn't ready to share the full details yet. She needed time to process her own feelings before she could explain the situation to others. That evening, over dinner at their favorite restaurant, found herself looking at her sister with new eyes. Emma had always been open about her feelings and struggles, sharing her relationship problems and insecurities freely. Had sometimes found her sister's emotional transparency exhausting, preferring to keep her own feelings more private. But now she wondered if Robert had seen the same thing in her that she saw in Emma. Had her tendency toward emotional restraint made Robert feel like he couldn't share his deeper feelings with her? Had she unknowingly created an environment where he felt he needed to hide his vulnerability? "You seem different tonight," Emma observed. "More thoughtful than usual. Is this about Robert's estate? Are there financial problems I should know about?" Shook her head. "No, nothing like that. It's just, I'm learning things about Robert that I never knew. It's making me question how well I really knew him." Emma reached across the table and took's hand. "Honey, nobody knows another person completely. We all have private thoughts and feelings that we don't share, even with our spouses. The important thing is that Robert loved you and you loved him. Don't let whatever you're discovering now overshadow the happiness you had together." But wasn't sure it was that simple. The man she had discovered in the house on Maple Grove Lane wasn't just a private version of her husband. He was a fundamentally different person. More artistic, more romantic, more emotionally expressive, more vulnerable. Had she been married to an act? Had the real Robert been hiding from her all along? That night returned to the secret house instead of going home. She wasn't ready to go back to their shared bedroom, to sleep in their shared bed, surrounded by memories of the man she thought she knew. Instead, she made herself comfortable in Robert's art studio, surrounded by his paintings and sculptures of her. She found herself staring at the marble sculpture of herself, wondering how many hours Robert had spent studying her face and body to capture such perfect detail. When had he observed her so closely? How had he memorized the curve of her shoulder, the tilt of her head, the way her hair fell across her face when she read? The thought that Robert had been watching her so intently, studying her so carefully, was both touching and unsettling. Had she been living with a stranger who was documenting her every move? Or had she been living with a man who loved her so deeply that he wanted to memorize every detail of her existence? As she settled in for another night in Robert's secret sanctuary, realized that tomorrow she would need to make some important decisions. She could continue exploring the house, learning more about the husband she never truly knew. She could sell the property and try to move forward with her life, preserving her memories of Robert as he was. Or she could find a way to integrate these new discoveries into her understanding of their relationship and her own identity as his widow. But tonight, surrounded by evidence of Robert's hidden love, allowed herself to feel something she hadn't experienced since his death, curiosity about what tomorrow might bring. For the first TEAS appointment with Dr. Martinez proved to be more revealing than she had expected. The therapist's office was warm and comfortable, with soft lighting and plants that created an atmosphere of safety and trust. Dr. Martinez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle manner that immediately put at ease. "Mrs., I want you to know how sorry I am for your loss," Dr. Martinez began. "Robert spoke about you constantly during our sessions. You were the center of his world, and I know how much he loved you." "That's what I'm having trouble understanding," replied. "If he loved me so much, why did he feel the need to keep such huge secrets from me? Why did he create this whole separate life that I knew nothing about?" Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Robert came to me because he was struggling with what he called emotional perfectionism. He had this idea that in order to be worthy of your love, he had to present himself as completely confident and secure. He was terrified that if you saw his vulnerabilities and insecurities, you might realize you could do better." "But that's crazy," said. "I married him because I loved him, flaws and all. I never expected him to be perfect." "Did you ever tell him that?" Dr. Martinez asked gently. "Think about your conversations over the years. When he shared problems or insecurities with you, how did you typically respond?" Thought back to their marriage, trying to remember specific conversations. She realized with growing discomfort that when Robert had shared concerns or doubts with her, she had often responded by trying to fix the problem or reassure him that everything would be fine. She had meant to be supportive, but she had rarely encouraged him to sit with his feelings or explore them more deeply. "I think I might have inadvertently shut down some of his attempts to be vulnerable with me," admitted. "I'm a problem solver by nature. When he told me he was worried about something, I would try to find solutions instead of just listening." Dr. Martinez nodded. "Robert mentioned that about you. He said you were incredibly capable and that you had a way of making problems seem manageable. But he also felt pressure to bring you solutions rather than problems. He thought that being a good husband meant protecting you from his emotional struggles. So he created the house as a place where he could process his feelings without involving me." "Exactly. Robert saw the house as his emotional workshop. It was where he went to work through his feelings about your relationship, his fears about the future, and his dreams for your family. He told me that being there helped him come home to you feeling more centered and confident." Felt a complex mix of emotions. On one hand, she was hurt that Robert hadn't trusted her enough to share his struggles. On the other hand, she was beginning to understand that his secrecy had come from love rather than deception. "Dr. Martinez, in his last few sessions with you, Robert mentioned wanting to tell me about the house. What changed his mind?" The therapist smiled sadly. "We had been working for months on his fear of vulnerability. Robert had come to understand that by hiding his emotional life from you, he was actually creating distance in your relationship. He realized that you couldn't truly know him if he only showed you the parts of himself he thought were acceptable. He was planning to bring me to the house for our anniversary," said. "Yes, he had worked out a whole plan. He wanted to show you the art he had created, the preparations he had made for your future family, and the depth of his feelings for you. He was nervous, but excited about finally sharing that part of himself with you." Left the therapy session with a new understanding of Robert's motivations, but she also felt a profound sadness about what they had lost. If Robert had lived just 2 more weeks, their anniversary might have marked a new level of intimacy in their relationship instead of the discovery of secrets after his death. Over the next several days, continued exploring the house on Maple Grove Lane, but now she approached her discoveries with more compassion for Robert's struggles. She began to see the house not as a betrayal, but as evidence of a man who loved her so much that he was afraid of overwhelming her with the intensity of his feelings. In Robert's art studio, found a series of paintings that chronicled her emotional states throughout different periods of their marriage. There were paintings of her looking stressed during her graduate school exams, peaceful during their vacations, excited when they bought their first house together, and contemplative during quiet Sunday mornings. Robert had been paying attention to her moods and feelings in ways she had never realized. One painting particularly caught her attention. It showed her crying, though she couldn't remember Robert ever seeing her in such distress. The painting was dated 2 years earlier, around the time her father had been diagnosed with cancer. She remembered feeling overwhelmed and scared, but she had tried to hide those feelings from Robert because she didn't want to burden him with her family problems. Apparently, her attempt at emotional hiding had been unsuccessful. Robert had seen her pain and captured it in art, but he had never mentioned noticing her distress. Began to wonder how many times they had both been protecting each other from difficult emotions, creating parallel lives of hidden feelings. In a drawer in the art studio, found a journal that Robert had titled Understanding. The entries detailed his observations about her preferences, her moods, her dreams, and her fears. He had been studying her like a scientist studies a fascinating subject, trying to understand every aspect of her personality and emotional life. March 20th gets quiet when she's processing bad news. She doesn't want to talk about problems right away. She needs time to think them through first. I've learned to wait for her to come to me instead of pushing for immediate conversation. July 15th, she's happiest when she's creating something with her hands. Whether it's cooking, gardening, or that pottery class she took last year, comes alive when she's making something beautiful. I should encourage more of these activities. November 3rd pretends she doesn't care about romantic gestures, but I can see how much they mean to her. The key is making them personal and specific to her interests rather than generic flowers and chocolates. She treasures the handwritten notes I leave in her lunch more than expensive gifts. Reading Robert's observations about her was like seeing herself through a loving but analytical lens. He had noticed patterns in her behavior that she wasn't even aware of herself. His attention to detail was both touching and slightly overwhelming. Also found correspondence between Robert and various artists and craftspeople. He had been commissioning custom pieces for her, apparently planning a series of surprise gifts that would span years into their future. There were emails with a jeweler about a custom anniversary bracelet, letters to a potter about a set of dishes designed specifically for her hands and preferences, and conversations with a carpenter about built-in for the home library she had always dreamed of having. The evidence of Robert's long-term planning was astounding. He had been thinking years ahead, anticipating her desires and needs, preparing surprises that would unfold gradually throughout their life together. His death had interrupted not just their present, but a carefully orchestrated future filled with tokens of his love and attention. One afternoon, while exploring the basement workshop, made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden behind a false wall was a smaller room that Robert had converted into what could only be described as a shrine to his family history. The walls were covered with photographs and documents related to his childhood and his parents' troubled relationship. Had known that Robert's father had left when Robert was 12, but she had never understood the full impact of that abandonment on her husband's emotional development. The room contained newspaper clippings about his father's business failures, court documents from his parents' bitter divorce, and photographs showing the progression of his mother's depression following the abandonment. There were also journals that Robert had kept as a child and teenager, documenting his feelings about his father's departure and his mother's subsequent emotional unavailability. The young Robert's writing revealed a boy who felt responsible for his family's problems and terrified of someday abandoning people the way his father had. "I won't be like him," teenage Robert had written. "I won't leave the people I love. I won't make promises I can't keep. I won't hurt someone the way he hurt Mom." Began to understand that Robert's emotional perfectionism and his fear of vulnerability stemmed from childhood trauma. He had spent his adult life trying to be the opposite of his father, but in his effort to avoid causing emotional pain, he had ended up creating emotional distance. In this hidden room, also found letters that Robert had written to his father but never sent. Years and years of letters expressing anger, hurt, disappointment, and eventually a kind of sad acceptance. The most recent letter was dated just a month before Robert's death. "Dad, I'm 42 years old now, and I'm finally beginning to understand that your leaving wasn't about me or Mom not being good enough. You left because you were afraid, just like I've been afraid of so many things in my own life. I've spent 30 years trying to be the opposite of you, but I think I've gone too far in the other direction. I've been so afraid of hurting the way you hurt Mom that I haven't let her see the real me. I've been protecting her from problems and emotions that she has every right to share. I don't forgive you for leaving us, and I don't think I ever will, but I'm starting to forgive myself for being your son. I'm starting to believe that I can love someone completely without destroying them, that I can be vulnerable without being weak, that I can need help without being a burden. I'm going to tell about this place soon. I'm going to show her all the art I've created, all the love I've been hiding, all the fears I've been carrying. I think she's strong enough to handle the real me, and I think our marriage deserves the chance to be built on complete honesty instead of careful editing. I hope that wherever you are, you've found some peace. And I hope that someday I can stop defining myself by your mistakes and start defining myself by my own choices. Your son, Robert, sat in that hidden room for hours, reading through decades of her husband's emotional development. She began to see Robert's secret house not as a betrayal of their marriage, but as evidence of his lifelong struggle to heal from childhood wounds and become the man he wanted to be for her. The house had been Robert's way of practicing emotional honesty in a safe space. It was where he went to work through his feelings, to process his fears, and to prepare himself to be vulnerable with the person he loved most. He hadn't been hiding from their marriage. He had been preparing for a deeper version of it. That evening, called her sister Emma and asked her to come to the house. She felt ready to share her discoveries with someone else, and she needed help processing the complex emotions she was experiencing. Emma arrived with takeout dinner and wine, prepared for a long conversation. As showed her through the house, explaining each room and its significance, Emma's expressions changed from confusion to amazement to profound sadness. "This man loved you in ways I've never seen before," Emma said as they sat in the living room surrounded by Robert's photographs and paintings. "This isn't obsession or unhealthy attachment. This is a person who saw you as the most beautiful and important thing in his world." "But why couldn't he just tell me that?" asked. "Why did he feel like he had to love me in secret?" Emma was quiet for a long time, studying a painting of reading in their garden. "You know, I think Robert and I had something in common. We were both terrified of being too much for the people we loved, but we handled it differently. I became emotionally overwhelming, sharing every feeling and thought I had. Robert became emotionally underground, hiding his feelings to protect others from their intensity. Do you think I did something wrong? Did I make him feel like he couldn't be open with me?" "Honey, you didn't do anything wrong. But maybe you both fell into patterns that felt safe but weren't entirely honest. Robert hid his emotional intensity because he was afraid of overwhelming you. You probably minimized your own emotional needs because you wanted to be the strong, independent woman you thought he needed." Realized Emma was right. She had often downplayed her own struggles and desires during their marriage, presenting herself as self-sufficient and low maintenance. She had thought she was being a good wife by not burdening Robert with too many needs or emotions. But maybe her emotional restraint had inadvertently taught Robert that feelings were something to be managed privately rather than shared. "The sad thing is," Emma continued, "you were both trying to be perfect for each other, but what you really needed was to be real with each other." That night made a decision that surprised her. Instead of sleeping in Robert's art studio as she had been doing, she went home to their shared bedroom for the first time since discovering the house. But she brought something with her, one of Robert's paintings of her, one that showed her looking directly at the viewer with an expression of love and acceptance. She hung the painting on the wall across from their bed, where Robert would have been able to see it every morning when he woke up. For the first time since his death, felt like she was sharing space with the real Robert, not just the carefully edited version he had presented during their marriage. As she lay in their bed, thought about the future. She could sell the house on Maple Grove Lane and try to return to her old life, but she knew that was impossible now. The discoveries she had made had changed her understanding of love, marriage, and emotional intimacy in fundamental ways. Or she could find a way to honor Robert's memory by learning from his mistakes and his insights. She could use what she had learned about the importance of emotional honesty to build better relationships in her own life. She could stop hiding her own feelings behind competence and self-sufficiency. 3 weeks after discovering Robert's secret house, made a decision that surprised everyone who knew her. Instead of selling the property, she decided to keep it and transform it into something that would honor both Robert's memory and her own future. But first, she needed to uncover the final pieces of the puzzle that was her late husband's hidden life. Had noticed that several of Robert's journals referenced a storage unit, but she hadn't found any documentation for it in the house. After searching through his desk more carefully, she discovered a small key taped to the underside of a drawer, along with an address for a storage facility across town. The drive to the storage facility gave time to think about how much her life had changed in just a few weeks. She was no longer the same woman who had sat in the lawyer's office, shocked to learn about a house she didn't know existed. That woman had thought she knew everything about her husband and her marriage. This woman was beginning to understand that love was far more complex and mysterious than she had ever imagined. The storage unit was larger than had expected, about the size of a single-car garage. When she rolled up the metal door, she found herself looking at what appeared to be a professional photographer's studio, complete with lighting equipment, cameras, and backdrops. Along the walls were dozens of large, professional portraits but these weren't the casual photographs she had found in the house. These were stunning artistic portraits that captured her in ways she had never seen herself. Robert had somehow managed to photograph her without her knowledge, creating a gallery of images that revealed her natural beauty and grace in moments when she thought no one was watching. There were pictures of her working in their garden, her hands dirty and her face peaceful. There were images of her reading on their front porch, completely absorbed in a book. There were photographs of her cooking in their kitchen, laughing on the phone with her sister, even sleeping peacefully in their bed on Sunday mornings. Felt a complex mix of emotions as she studied these images. On one hand, the idea that Robert had been photographing her secretly was unsettling. On the other hand, the photographs revealed a woman who looked confident, beautiful, and deeply loved. She barely recognized herself in some of the images. Robert's artistic eye had captured qualities in her that she didn't know she possessed. In the back corner of the storage unit, found Robert's photography journals, which documented his process and his thoughts about each image. His writing revealed a man who was studying his wife not just as an artist studies a subject, but as a scientist studies a fascinating phenomenon. July 20th, I captured in the garden today. She doesn't realize how beautiful she looks when she's completely focused on nurturing something. There's a quality of peace in her face that I rarely see when she knows someone is watching. I want to paint this expression, but I need to study it more first. September 5th was reading poetry on the porch this afternoon. I've never seen her look so content and self-contained. She has this way of disappearing into books that makes her seem like she's traveling to other worlds. I took 17 shots before I got one that captured that sense of journey. December 12th, she was wrapping Christmas presents last night, and her face had this expression of anticipation and joy that made my heart stop. Takes such pleasure in giving gifts, in making other people happy. I don't think she has any idea how beautiful she is when she's planning surprises for the people she loves. Realized that Robert had been documenting not just her appearance but her character. He had been capturing moments that revealed her personality, her values, and her way of being in the world. In his eyes, she wasn't just physically beautiful. She was beautiful in the way she moved through life, in the way she loved, in the way she found joy in simple pleasures. The photography equipment in the storage unit was expensive and professional grade. Found receipts showing that Robert had spent thousands of dollars on cameras and lenses over the years, apparently teaching himself photography through online courses and practice. This hadn't been a casual hobby. It had been a serious artistic pursuit driven by his desire to capture and preserve every aspect of their life together. In a filing cabinet, found the most surprising discovery yet: correspondence between Robert and several art galleries. He had been preparing for a photography exhibition featuring his portraits of her, planned for their upcoming 15th wedding anniversary. The gallery owner's letters expressed enthusiasm for Robert's work and confidence that the exhibition would be well received. "Your portraits have captured something transcendent about long-term love," one gallery director had written. "These images show us what it looks like when someone is truly seen and cherished by their partner. This is the kind of love story that our world needs to see more of." Robert had been planning to surprise not just with the secret house, but with a public celebration of their love and his artistic vision of their relationship. The exhibition would have revealed his hidden artistic talent to their friends and community while simultaneously declaring his love for in the most public way possible. Found the exhibition proposal Robert had submitted to the gallery, complete with artist statements and descriptions of individual photographs. His writing revealed the depth of his artistic vision and his understanding of what he was trying to accomplish with his secret photography project. "This collection represents 15 years of loving one woman with complete attention," Robert had written in his artist statement. "My wife is not a professional model, and she is not conventionally beautiful in the way our culture typically defines beauty. But she is beautiful in the way that real love makes someone beautiful. These photographs are my attempt to show the world what it looks like when someone is loved exactly as they are, in every moment and mood and season of life." moves through the world with a kind of unconscious grace that comes from being comfortable with herself and generous with others. She doesn't perform beauty, she simply exists as a beautiful person. My challenge as an artist has been to capture that natural beauty without destroying it through self-consciousness or artifice. Every photograph in this collection was taken without knowledge, not to violate her privacy, but to preserve the authenticity of her natural expressions and gestures. The moment someone knows they are being photographed, they begin to perform a version of themselves. I wanted to document the real, the woman I see when she thinks no one is watching. This exhibition is my love letter to my wife, but it is also my gift to everyone who views these images. In a world that often portrays love as dramatic passion or romantic fantasy, I want to show what love actually looks like on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I want to show the beauty of a woman who is completely loved and the grace of a life that is lived with attention and care. We'll see these photographs for the first time at the exhibition opening, along with everyone else. My hope is that she will recognize herself not as I have idealized her, but as I have truly seen her for 15 years. My hope is that everyone who views these images will be inspired to look at their own loved ones with this kind of attention and appreciation. Sat in the storage unit for over an hour, absorbing the magnitude of what Robert had planned for their anniversary. He hadn't just been keeping secrets. He had been orchestrating a grand gesture of love and artistic achievement that would have transformed both their relationship and his professional life. She found the final piece of the puzzle in a sealed envelope marked for, in case something happens to me before the exhibition. Inside was a letter that explained Robert's backup plan. My darling, if you are reading this letter, then something has prevented me from sharing the exhibition with you in person. I want you to know that every photograph in this collection was taken with love and respect, never to invade your privacy, but to honor your beauty and grace. I have left instructions with the gallery that if anything happens to me, the decision about whether to proceed with the exhibition should be entirely yours. These images are yours to do with as you wish. You can display them publicly as I had planned, keep them private, or destroy them if they make you uncomfortable. But I hope you will consider sharing them with the world. Not because I want recognition for my artistic work, but because I believe these photographs show something important about love and attention and the beauty that exists in ordinary life. Looking at you through the camera lens taught me how to really see you. Creating these images taught me how to appreciate the small moments that make up a life together. This project made me a better husband because it forced me to notice and cherish details about you that I might otherwise have taken for granted. If you decide to go forward with the exhibition, please know that you will be sharing not just my artistic vision, but a celebration of everything beautiful about you. You will be showing the world what it looks like to be completely loved. Whatever you decide, please know that creating this collection was one of the most meaningful projects of my life. Through this lens, I fell in love with you over and over again, every single day. With all my love and artistic appreciation. Robert. P.S. The gallery has already sold several pieces to collectors who saw the preview portfolio. The proceeds are in a separate account that is now yours. My secret art career was apparently more successful than I ever imagined. Left the storage unit with her mind spinning. Robert hadn't just been hiding his emotional life from her. He had been building an entire artistic career based on his love for her. He had been preparing to step into the public eye as both an artist and a devoted husband, using their anniversary as the moment to reveal all the hidden aspects of his life. The drive home gave time to process this new information. She had thought the house on Maple Grove Lane was the extent of Robert's secrets, but the photography project revealed an even deeper level of planning and artistic vision. Her husband had been living multiple lives. The confident architect she knew, the vulnerable artist who worked in secret, and the devoted photographer who documented their love story with professional skill. That evening, called the gallery owner to discuss the exhibition. The conversation was emotional for both of them, as the gallery director expressed her sadness about Robert's death and her excitement about the quality of his artistic work. Mrs., I want you to know that your husband's photographs are some of the most moving portraits I've seen in 30 years in this business, the gallery owner said. These images capture something authentic about love that is rarely seen in contemporary art. Robert had a true artist's eye and a husband's heart. I'm not sure I'm ready to have my private life displayed publicly, admitted. These photographs were taken without my knowledge. I need time to think about whether I'm comfortable sharing them. Of course, take all the time you need. But I hope you'll consider that these images aren't just about your private life. They're about the universal experience of being loved and appreciated. They show something beautiful about human relationships that could inspire other people. Spent that night looking through the photographs Robert had taken, seeing herself through his artist's eye. The woman in these images was more beautiful than she had ever thought herself to be, not because Robert had idealized her, but because he had captured her in moments of genuine happiness and peace. She began to understand that Robert's secret artistic career wasn't separate from their marriage. It was an extension of it. His love for her had inspired him to develop talents and pursue dreams he had never shared with her. In trying to love her completely, he had discovered parts of himself he didn't know existed. The next morning made a decision that felt both terrifying and right. She called the gallery and told them she wanted to proceed with the exhibition, but with some modifications. Instead of presenting the photographs as Robert had planned, she wanted to create an exhibition that told the complete story of their marriage, including the discoveries she had made after his death. I want to show Robert's art alongside some of his journals and letters, explained. I want people to understand not just what it looks like to be loved this way, but what it cost Robert to love this deeply. I want to tell the story of a marriage that was beautiful but not perfect, honest but not complete. Was beginning to see that Robert's secret house, his hidden art career, and his photography project were all part of a larger story about the complexity of love and the challenge of true intimacy. His secrets had hurt her, but they had also revealed the depth of his devotion and the extent of his emotional growth. 6 months after discovering Robert's secret house, stood in the gallery where her husband's photography exhibition was about to open to the public. She wore a simple black dress and the diamond engagement ring Robert had hidden in his safe, the one he had been too insecure to give her when they were young. Around her neck was the necklace he had bought her but never found the right moment to present. The gallery walls displayed Robert's photographs alongside excerpts from his journals, letters, and therapy notes. Had worked with the curator to create an exhibition that told the complete story of their marriage, including the secrets, the discoveries, and the complex emotions that had shaped their relationship. The centerpiece of the exhibition was Robert's marble sculpture positioned in the center of the main gallery space. Surrounding it were his most powerful photographs, each accompanied by his written reflections about the moment he had captured. The exhibition was titled Loving in Secret, a marriage story, and included its own written responses to Robert's art and words. Emma arrived early to support through what was sure to be an emotionally difficult evening. She found her sister standing in front of a photograph Robert had taken of reading in their garden, accompanied by one of his journal entries about the peace he found in watching her read. "How are you feeling?" Emma asked, taking his hand. "Terrified and proud and sad all at the same time," admitted. "I keep thinking about how much Robert would have loved to see this evening, to finally share his art with the world. But I also know that he never would have had the courage to be this honest about his feelings if he were still alive." The gallery began to fill with people from their community. Was surprised by how many of Robert's former colleagues and clients had come to see the exhibition. Many of them had known Robert as a successful architect, but none of them had suspected his artistic talents or the depth of his emotional life. Dr. Martinez arrived with her husband, and she made her way directly to. The therapist had been instrumental in helping understand Robert's psychological journey and had contributed a written piece to the exhibition about the relationship between creativity and emotional growth. "This is beautiful and brave," Dr. Martinez said, gesturing to the photographs and written materials surrounding them. "Robert would be so proud of you for sharing his story this way. You've created something that honors both his art and his emotional journey." "I hope so," replied. "I wanted people to understand that love isn't always simple or straightforward. Robert loved me in ways I never fully understood while he was alive, but that doesn't make his love less real or valuable." As the evening progressed, watched people move through the exhibition with expressions of wonder and recognition. Many couples stood together in front of Robert's photographs, clearly seeing reflections of their own relationships in the images. Several people approached to share their own stories about the challenge of loving someone completely while managing personal fears and insecurities. One woman, about's age, stopped to talk about a photograph that showed cooking dinner while humming to herself. My husband takes pictures of me like this all the time, but I always ask him to delete them because I think I look terrible. Seeing these images makes me wonder if I should let him keep them. Maybe he sees something in those moments that I don't see in myself. A young man studying Robert's journal entries told, "I've been married for 3 years, and I'm always afraid that my wife will think I'm too intense if I tell her how much I think about her. Reading about your husband's experience makes me think that maybe I should take the risk of being more open about my feelings." Realized that Robert's story was resonating with people because it revealed something universal about the experience of loving someone. Almost everyone struggled with questions about how much of themselves to reveal, how much intensity was appropriate to share, how to love someone completely without overwhelming them. The most emotional moment of the evening came when found herself standing in front of Robert's letter to their future children, which was displayed alongside the photographs he had taken of her during times when they had been discussing the possibility of starting a family. An older woman approached her and said quietly, "My husband and I tried for years to have children, but it never happened for us. We divorced eventually because we couldn't talk about our disappointment and grief. Your husband's letters show what it might have looked like if we had been able to share those feelings instead of hiding them from each other." Felt overwhelmed by the realization that Robert's private struggles and hidden dreams were connecting with so many people. His secret artistic project, born from his fear of emotional vulnerability, had become a public testament to the courage required for true intimacy. As the evening wound down, found herself alone with Robert's marble sculpture. She placed her hand on the smooth stone surface, thinking about the man who had spent countless hours capturing her likeness in stone and in photographs, trying to preserve and honor their love in permanent form. Emma joined her, and they stood together in comfortable silence for several minutes. "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive him for keeping so many secrets?" Emma asked. Considered the question carefully. Over the past 6 months, her feelings about Robert's hidden life had evolved from hurt and betrayal to understanding and appreciation. She had come to see his secrets not as evidence that he didn't trust her, but as evidence of how much their relationship meant to him. "I think the question isn't whether I can forgive him," finally said. "The question is whether I can forgive myself for creating a marriage where he felt like he couldn't share his deepest feelings with me. We both contributed to the emotional distance in our relationship, even though we loved each other deeply." "What will you do now?" Emma asked. "Will you keep the house on Maple Grove Lane?" Smiled, thinking about the decision she had made just that morning. "I'm going to live there. I'm going to turn Robert's art studio into my own creative space and see what happens when I try to be as emotionally honest as he was. I want to learn from his example and his mistakes." "What kind of creative work do you want to do?" "I'm not sure yet. Maybe writing, maybe photography, maybe something entirely different. But I want to explore the part of myself that I kept hidden during our marriage, just like Robert explored his hidden artistic side. I want to see what happens when I stop being so afraid of being too much or too intense or too emotional." In the weeks following the exhibition, received dozens of letters from people who had been moved by Robert's story. Several couples wrote to tell her that the exhibition had inspired them to be more open with each other about their feelings and fears. A few people shared their own stories about secret creative projects or hidden aspects of their relationships. One letter particularly touched. It was from a young woman who had seen the exhibition with her. "Dear Mrs. Mai and I visited your husband's exhibition last weekend, and it changed the way we think about our upcoming marriage. We had been planning what we thought would be the perfect wedding and the perfect marriage, but your husband's story made us realize that perfection isn't the goal. Authenticity is the goal. We've decided to start our marriage by sharing our fears and insecurities with each other instead of pretending we don't have any. We want to create space in our relationship for vulnerability and emotional honesty from the very beginning. Your husband's art showed us what it looks like to love someone completely, including the parts of them that they don't think are worthy of love. We hope we can learn to see each other with that kind of artistic and emotional vision. Thank you for sharing such a personal story. Your courage in revealing your husband's secrets has given us permission to be brave in our own relationship." Kept this letter, along with many others, in a box in Robert's former art studio, which was now becoming her writing space. She had started working on a book about her experience discovering Robert's hidden life and what it had taught her about love, secrecy, and emotional intimacy. Writing about Robert forced to examine her own role in their relationship dynamic. She began to understand that while Robert had been hiding his emotional intensity, she had been hiding her own needs and desires. She had presented herself as self-sufficient and low-maintenance, thinking that was what a good wife should be. But in doing so, she had inadvertently created distance in their marriage. This book became an exploration of how two people could love each other deeply while still maintaining emotional secrets. She wrote about the fine line between protecting your partner from your struggles and shutting them out of your inner life. She wrote about the difference between healthy privacy and unhealthy secrecy. Most importantly, wrote about forgiveness and understanding. Robert's secrets had initially felt like betrayals, but she had come to see them as evidence of his deep love and his commitment to protecting their relationship. His hidden life revealed not a man who was deceiving his wife, but a man who was trying to become worthy of her love. A year after discovering the house on Maple Grove Lane, had transformed it into something new. She kept Robert's art and his creative spaces intact, but she added her own creative work to the mix. The house became a place where both their artistic visions could coexist, where their love story could continue to evolve even after his death. Also made the house available to other couples who were struggling with communication and emotional intimacy. With Dr. Martinez's help, she developed a program that used Robert's art and story to help couples learn about the importance of vulnerability and emotional honesty in relationships. The house that had once been Robert's secret sanctuary became a place where people came to learn about the courage required for true intimacy. Couples walked through Robert's art studio and photography collection, then participated in exercises designed to help them share their own hidden thoughts and feelings with each other. Often told the couples who visited the house, "My husband loved me so much that he was afraid to show me the full extent of his feelings. But love isn't something that should be hidden or rationed. Love is something that should be shared as completely and honestly as possible, even when it feels scary or overwhelming." On the anniversary of Robert's death, held a small gathering at the house on Maple Grove Lane. Emma was there, along with Dr. Martinez and several of the couples who had participated in the intimacy workshops. Had also invited the gallery owner and some of the people who had written letters after seeing Robert's exhibition. As the sun set through the windows of Robert's former art studio, stood up to address the group. "2 years ago, I thought I knew everything about love and marriage," she began. "I thought that being a good wife meant being easy to live with, that love meant never being a burden, that intimacy meant sharing the good parts of yourself while keeping the difficult parts private. Robert's secret house taught me that love is actually much more complex and much more generous than I understood. Real love means seeing and accepting all parts of another person, including the parts they think are unworthy of love. Real intimacy means sharing your fears and struggles and dreams, even when you're afraid they might be too much for another person to handle. I miss Robert every day, and I will always regret that we didn't have the chance to build the kind of completely honest relationship he was preparing us for. But I'm grateful that his secrets led me to a deeper understanding of what love actually requires. Robert's house has become my house now, but it's also become our house, a place where people can come to explore what it means to love someone completely and be loved completely in return. Robert's art continues to teach people about the beauty of being truly seen by another person, and his story continues to inspire couples to be braver in their own relationships. As the evening concluded, walked through the house one more time, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had started this experience as a widow discovering her husband's secrets, but she had ended it as a woman who understood love in ways she never had before. In Robert's former bedroom, paused in front of the window that overlooked the garden he had maintained for 8 years without her knowing. The garden was thriving under her care now, and the exhibition would be her way of honoring both the man she thought she had married and the man she was still getting to know. It would be her gift to Robert and to everyone who had ever struggled with the challenge of loving someone completely while remaining true to themselves. Fell asleep that night thinking about Dr. Martinez's words. Robert loved you so much that he was afraid of overwhelming you with the intensity of his feelings. Tomorrow, she would return to the house on Maple Grove Lane, but not as a detective uncovering secrets. She would return as a woman ready to receive her husband's love in all its overwhelming intensity, and to figure out how to carry that gift forward into whatever life awaited her since the funeral. She was looking forward instead of backward, eager to uncover more of the mystery that was her late husband's secret life and ever. Why hadn't he felt safe enough to share these struggles with her? What could she have done differently to help him feel more secure in their relationship? And most importantly, what else might she discover in this house that would change everything she thought she knew about their life together?